Hello, Simone. Today is going to be an interesting and controversial discussion focused on the question of why doesn't Christianity work for Asians?
Ooh.
And specifically, when I say why doesn't it work here, I mean at increasing fertility rates, because these numbers are going to shock you. And I'm going to lead right in with the numbers. So I think a lot of people know that, okay, you're a Christian, you're a conservative Christian, you're going to have more kids if you're in a Western country, if you're in Europe, something like that, right? This is a broadly known thing about fertility rates. And it's also broadly known that Buddhism has the lowest fertility rate of all of the religious systems,
But
right?
also, like, the end game of Buddhism is like genocide all conscious beings.
Well, yeah, we'll get
End the
into why
cycle.
Buddhism has a low fertility rate, but I think the on the ground fertility rates of these religions may surprise you. And another thing you'll note here, surprisingly, is generally, as we've noted, if you are in Europe or you are in the United States, if you are an average Catholic, you are going to have a lower fertility rate than the average Protestant at the same level of income. Pretty dramatically lower. You can see our episode on this, but it's the exact opposite in Asian populations. So we'll also be talking about this because Catholics actually have a higher fertility rate there. So if you go to Japan, if you are a Protestant, when this sample was captured, okay, you had an average fertility rate of 2, but if you were a Buddhist, you had an average fertility rate of 2.1. Now, keep in mind, this is an older sample, so the numbers are much lower now, but this is, when this is the data I have, okay? So if you were a Buddhist in Japan, you had a higher fertility rate than if you were a Protestant. Now,
Wow.
if you were a Catholic, you beat them both with a fertility rate of 2.5. What is also interesting here is that in Japan, the no religion was 2 and the Protestant was 2. So no religion and Protestant had the same fertility rate at this time in Japan. Korean,
Huh.
if you were a Protestant, you had a fertility rate of 1.99. If you were a Buddhist, you had a fertility rate of 2.35,
That's so
dramatically high.
wild. Why?
Yeah,
What?
and if you have no religion, it's 2.96, so about the same as Protestant. Catholics here are actually in Korea are beaten by Buddhists. In Korea, the Catholic fertility rate is 2.32, where the Buddhist is 2.35. Now let's go to Taiwan here, all right? In Taiwan, if you're a Protestant, you have a fertility rate of 2.5. This is the one where they have a big jump over no religion, which is only 2.06 when this sample was taken. Keep in mind, these are older numbers. They're way lower now. Note, these numbers are limited to women in their first marriage. And this study was published in 2016. You are a Buddhist in Taiwan. You have a fertility rate of 2.7 to the Protestant 2.5. And if you are a Catholic, it's 2.8, so slightly higher. Now, this is from a different study here that is
Okay.
looking at these over time for various religions. Okay. So if you were a Buddhist in 1985, you had a fertility rate of 2.71. If you were a Catholic, it was 2.14, so much
Wow.
lower. If you were a
Okay.
Protestant, it was 2.27, so again, much lower.
Hey.
And if you were not affiliated, it was 2.47.
Hmm.
So not affiliated in 1985 Korea beat both Catholic and Protestant.
What is going on there? Could it
Okay,
could it be
we'll
okay,
get
wait,
into
wait,
it.
wait,
We'll
wait, wait.
get into
I
it.
have a theory. I want to come in with hypotheses because then you can, make me look wrong. My guess is that because Christianity is a minority religion in these countries, that you are narrowing your population and creating additional barriers to marriage and coupling that ultimately delay childbirth and therefore reduce lifetime fertility.
Minority populations, when they are persecuted, almost always have higher fertility rates. So there's a
In some
few instances in which you don't see that, like
circumstances,
Native Americans and stuff like that. But generally,
yeah.
being a minority population and feeling persecuted increases your fertility rate because you have a reason to exist. This is
Yeah, but like maybe it's just hard as a Japanese Christian woman to find a Japanese Christian husband.
I imagine you'd have more default in common with him, but maybe. But that doesn't seem to be what the data is
Well,
showing. But let's
especially if your local Christian church does not have a really robust dating infrastructure set up, which I haven't. I've toured one Christian community in Japan in my life. It was kind of weird, and to my knowledge, it had absolutely no infrastructure for young couples. Nothing.
Fascinating.
So
We'll get into why that might have been the case in a second.
okay,
So
onward.
2005. So this is a bit further forwards from the 1985 sample, okay? Have things begun to change? The not affiliated fertility rate has crashed. Remember, it used to be 2.47. Now it is 1.40. So this is for not affiliated. But the Buddhist fertility rate has also crashed to 1.59.
Okay.
But also, the Christian fertility rate has crashed. The Catholic is still below the Buddhist at 1.48.
That is
And the
wild.
Protestant in this moment was actually above the Catholic at 1.50. So what?
Could this be a selection thing? Like, so it could be an aesthetic thing too. Like the people who are attracted, like sort of an outsider in Asia being attracted to Catholicism is more like they're attracted to the aestheticism and maybe even the asexuality. Because there are big factions of Catholicism that are very asexual. Nuns and priests are asexual. Could it be that there's a weird selection effect taking place, that like the hooks that are attracting people and the aesthetics that are attracting people are the non
I think you've got
fertile
part of it here,
subsets?
but not in the way that you're thinking.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's just lay it out here before we go to 2015.
I'm dying
What
for this. Come
else
on.
would Christianity be associated with, especially in like the 80s,
Uh-huh.
to somebody in Korea or Japan?
America? Europe?
Modernization and Western values.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So it's just increasing the adoption curve of the antinatalist plague.
Yes. So we'll get to all that in just a second. Now I want to go to 2015 because people can be like, okay, is this trend reversing? Because I've heard some people argue that the trend is reversing based on anecdotal data. Unfortunately, the actual data does not agree with them that strongly. If we go to 2015, for the not affiliated, it's down to 1.13. So, okay, not good. Are Buddhists above unaffiliated? Yes, they are. 1.33. Okay. What about the Catholics? How are they doing here? Are they beating the Buddhists yet? No. 1.16.
Oh,
Almost as low as the not affiliated at 1.13. If we go to the Protestants here, where are they? 1.28. So they're getting stomped by the Buddhists. So let's get into what some of the papers that have been going into this have been saying, because I just find these numbers fascinating.
yes.
Like, is this not an interesting question? Why is Christianity lowering rather than raising fertility rates in East Asia?
Right, because I mean, in Scott Alexander's long and fascinating blog post reviewing a book about the rise of early Christianity, his end conclusion was kind of like, well, maybe Christianity rose because the memes are just better. Like it just imparts more fitness to people. And you and I have argued in the Pragmatist Guide to Crafting Religion that in the end, religions that spread really well impart fitness to their adherents. And fitness is in large part reflected in birth rates. So why would a religion that has imparted quite a lot of fitness to adherents in Europe, especially parts of the Middle East, not be working in Asia? Why?
Why? Well, one of the hypotheses you put out there is they are extreme minorities that might have trouble dating because of that. So I'm going to put on the screen, putting a chart on the screen here so you can get an idea. Are these groups extreme minorities? You might be surprised by the actual data. So by 2015, what percent is Buddhist? 14.1%. What percent is Protestant? 20.7%.
What? So they should have an advantage. What is going on?
What percent is Catholic? 8.5%.
Okay, that shouldn't be bad.
Now, what if you go to the past? What do you go to the past? Okay.
Okay.
Let's go 1985 here. Okay.
Mhm.
What percent is Buddhist? 27.5%. Back then for Catholics, it was 5.9% and 18.7% for Protestants. So you can see a change. The Christian groups have grown over time.
Well, yeah, clearly. But I guess they're growing through conversion more than birth rate.
And yeah, and Buddhism has lost like half of its participants over that period.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, could it be also? I think you know what? I think what you said about this being more correlated, not with an adoption of the actual religious values, but of the aesthetics, to really hold weight. And here's why. In Japan, when I traveled through there as a teen, there were like lots of Christian looking chapels. They were just used for weddings. Like people weren't really Christian, but you might have like your traditional Shinto ceremony, and then you'd like do photos and maybe a wedding in like a building that was purpose built to kind of have like show weddings that looked like they were in chapels. And that it was really about the trappings of this aesthetic. And the aesthetic was Western. I mean, this was at the same time when a lot of women were dyeing their hair this sort of auburn chestnut color, and dressing in Lolita clothing that was largely like sort of inspired by like frilly European dresses. And there was sort of this idealization of Westernization and riffing on it, but it wasn't full adoption of the memes. And that's something that, like, for example, Japan, and I think South Korea is also really good at this, but like I've always thought of Japan as being a master at this, of like taking foreign ideas and just making them cooler, but also kind of abstracting them from their core values and purpose.
So the studies there's a lot of studies on this because I
Uh-huh.
read them. I was like, okay, what is this?
Yeah.
They do show that in the 80s, Christian churches were seen as being uniquely pro things like contraception, planning.
No?
Many of these concepts they saw as like Western and forward.
So
And
this is a
so,
Western thing. It's not a Christian thing.
right, but they saw the two as a combined entity in the 80s. Now,
Mhm.
this has dramatically changed. If I'm going to read a passage here from one of the studies, Christian churches have not kept up with recent radical transformation of the notions of sexuality, marriage, and childbearing. For example, studies have shown association of Christian affiliation, especially with Protestant churches, with more conservative orientations in matters such as dating and sexual partnership, e.g., Lee, Joe, and Kim 19, or in more general social and political views, e.g., Jang 2018, Kang 2004, Kang 2012. As a result, Catholicism and Protestantism, which were once the vanguard of Korean modernization, are increasingly seen as symbols of traditionalism in today's Korea. So you can say, "Oh, this is good," and we'll get to in a second numbers on how. Actually, I'll just get to them right now. Why don't I just throw them up right now? How actually traditional are these different religious traditions? And so I'll read something about the study that was done here. So the EASS also contains 18 questions on individuals' attitudes towards marriage in general, e.g., it is all right for a couple to live together without intending to get married. Gender roles, e.g., a husband's job is to earn money, a wife's job is to look after the home and family. Relationship inside the family, e.g., the authority of father in a family should be respected under any circumstances, and familial piety, e.g., children must make efforts to do something that would bring honor to their parents. On a scale from 1 to 7, they either strongly disagreed or strongly agreed. And so, in answering questions like these, where did people of different religions come up in sort of their conservative scale? Okay. And here we're going to look at Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. All right. So if you were a Buddhist, you would come up as quite conservative on this stuff. So in
Wow.
it was a 25.7%. In Korea, it was 29.77%. And in Taiwan, it was 25%. For context, if you were a Catholic, you would come up as 0.28% in Japan, 11.05% in Korea, and 0.83% in Taiwan.
Okay,
Not
I'm realizing something here, which is when I think about sort of the inverse of this, and I think about Americans who adopted Buddhism or other Eastern religions, they often have very, very low birth rates and are unmoored from their traditional cultures. And they're like, it's almost like a proxy for them being taken over by the urban monoculture. And I wonder if there's some element of this where it's about being unmoored from your ancestral culture and like making a concerted
This is why
decision
I
to abandon
encourage
it.
people, rather than just adopting our belief system with techno-Puritanism, to work on their ancestral culture if they have a strong connection to it, because it might be the only way that they have out of this. Let's go to some of these other countries here. Remember, I was
Okay.
just going through. Okay, how bad is this for Catholicism, let's look at Protestantism. So in Japan, where Buddhism is at 25.7% very conservative attitudes, Protestants are 0.14% very conservative attitudes.
It really seems that adopting a foreign religion is more about rejecting your ancestral religion.
Exactly. In Taiwan, where Buddhism is at 25.08%, Protestantism was at 3.99%. Keep in mind, much more than Catholicism, but still like not that high. The only country where it's high, very interesting here, is remember how Protestantism had been in Korea for a long time? Even if we go back to the 80s, we're looking at 18% of the population. Well, in Korea, while Buddhists had a 29.77% very traditional attitudes, Protestants had a 25.67% very traditional attitudes. So almost the same as Buddhists, whereas Catholics were only 11.05% very traditional attitudes.
And your argument there is that at that point, it had become more of a historical and traditional religion.
Exactly.
Mm.
So Christianity does work within these countries if it's been working within a community for many generations.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
keep in mind that we argue that these things co-evolve together. So there's two
Yeah.
things. One is adopting a new tradition a rejection of your ancestry? Like if you're in India and Christianity's been there almost since the time of Christ, and you're from the Christian community, you are rejecting your ancestry and your heritage by believing anything else. So one is, does this disconnect you from pride in your ancestry? But then the second is, does this did you co-evolve with this? And by this, what I mean is we can see that historically, if you look at like a Korea, right, Protestants have lower fertility rates than Buddhists. And it's likely because some elements of this culture, people who would have been bred out of the culture due to personality elements, like maybe being overly obsessed with aestheticism or something like that, are not bred out in Korean culture. And so you see this lower birth rate at first. But after those people are bred out of the population, then you get a population where the software package, this Protestantism, is designed to work with this new sort of strain of Korean identity and culture and genetic line, which is why it's hard to just paste one religion onto a group that has no connection historically to that. And so I think that where you see people coming out of this in like Korea, let's look at the fertility rates here to see if this backs was what we're seeing. So if we look at the more modern fertility rates in Korea for Protestants, how far is that below Buddhists? It's not as far below as it used to be. So in 2015, Buddhists were at 1.33. For Protestants, it was 1.28. So really almost as high as the Buddhist rate. If we go back to 1985, was it different? Yeah, it was quite different. For Buddhists, it was 2.71. For Protestants, it was 2.27. So we see the gap there decreasing as time goes on. Now, if we look here, and keep in mind, this may not be like pure like evolutionary pressure. It may be the culture better adapts to this new environment over time, or this new population with different predilections, different ways of relating to authority. Like Koreans relate to authority in a different way than people from the Western world relate to authority. They're like, why? How would that change their relationship with God? And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, obviously that's going to change their relationship with God. So I think that if this religion has been honed for an audience that is an anti-authoritarian audience, like suppose you have like an Appalachian, more like Protestant, like a reflexively anti-authoritarian population, and you had a religion that was not designed but co-evolved with that, and then you put it on a pro-authoritarian population, it's just not gonna thrive. This is probably also why in these East Asian, more authoritarian cultures, Catholicism significantly outcompetes Protestantism in terms of fertility rates, because it better harmonizes with their just trust the guy in charge mindset. But I wanted to go into a piece by Mercantor. Do you have any thoughts on this before we go further? Mercantor, big fans of this guy's work, really fun. One of the first people to write on us, and he mentions us in this particular piece as well on Korea's fertility rate.
Oh, wow.
That he's talking about, like, are they building their own Quiverful movement?
Mm.
Quiverful is a Christian movement which first caught the eye of the mainstream media with 19 Kids and Counting, a reality show starring the Duggar family. It was going strong until sex scandals hit the founder and the Duggars themselves. In recent years, the American Pro-Natalist movement has taken a techno-optimist turn. Its best-known representatives are Simone and Malcolm Collins, who feature frequently on news sites and TV shows, and starred at recent Pro-Natalist conference. They describe themselves as atheists, which not really anymore, maybe in some of the earlier stuff about us. Tech entrepreneur Elon Musk, who has fathered 11 children with 3 women, is a fertility evangelist and is not known to be religious. A couple years ago, a promoter of pro-natalist values emerged in South Korea, Lee Byung-chun, a missionary from Kyanto Church, a small missionary sending church in Busan, in the country's second largest city, found a new calling. He
Huh.
calls his campaign the 303 Project. The aims of the 303 Project are to encourage marriage before 30, having at least 3 children. So it's, I think he maybe means here 33 Project to mean have kids before 30 and have at least 3 kids,
I
which I
like
think
that.
is really important. Have kids before 30. Lee was inspired by Eastern European and American Protestant missionaries in China who often had 6 or 7 children. These are probably migrant Ukrainian and Russian Pentecostal or Baptist churches in the USA. Lee and his wife have 4 children who have already pledged that they will marry and have children early. He then started the 303 Club, in which couples as well as single people pledge to strive towards 303 goals or 33 goals. He frequently quotes the biblical verse which gave the quiverful movement its name: like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. When I actually read that line, I was like, that's remarkably good advice from the Bible. If you notice here, it's saying children born in a man's youth, which is pointing
Mm,
out that for most of your life, you are not going to be able to have healthy kids. You get a
mm.
short window in your youth to have kids. Children and childbearing are activities of youth, not activities of middle age.
Yeah.
His campaign seems to be getting traction. Hundreds of searches are promoting his message, and pastors and young couples have become activists. According to the newspaper Kukiom Imbo, Pastor Lee's congregants at the Kento Church had an average of 2.4 children last year, triple the national average. So
Wow.
he's getting the number up, but 2.4 ain't gonna save anyone. I mean, we're only at 4 now ourselves, right? Like the recent Slate piece bemoaned how few kids we had. Why are they the pronatalist
Yeah, how
advocate?
pathetic. Listen, hopefully
We haven't had a sex scandal yet. Okay, maybe that's why. So, Simone, am I gonna get in trouble for? Well, the sex scandals they had were from their kids, so we've got to work on that.
I really am not concerned about our kids. Just
Then you
not.
do not know me as a kid.
Oh.
Especially if our kids are famous. I don't know how you get away without a sex scandal if you're famous on the internet and like a 17-year-old horny guy.
I hope we will train our children well.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Hmm.
Maybe get some true believers out of them. However, he then here notes another thing called the Dangjing Donggil Church. Li Beijong Chang has some competition. For more than 20 years, the Dangjing Donggil Church in the country's world southwest has provided daycare and after-school childcare services at half the standard cost. Unlike municipal daycare centers, they are open until 10 p.m. There are several in the city. According to TV interviews with the pastor at Donggil Church. According to a recent news report in April 2024, the mayor of Dongji-o, Sang Hwan, a city of 100,000, estimated that 12.4% of all newborns are from members of the Donggil Church. They account for the
Wow.
fact that Donggil had the highest TFR in the South Zhejiang province at 1.03. This is the highest fertility of all of the districts of the province.
Well, and isn't this just the message we've been sharing that you may say, okay, well, South Korea is boned, but all you need is a small number of families with a very high fertility rate. Theirs isn't crazy high, but still, and they will just inherit the future. This is not an everyone has to get involved problem. This is an only people who make children their autistic special interest problem thing or religious.
And that's why we all hold hands as a united team. Now, keep in mind this 1.03 number, which is the average for their province, can be compared to at the time of this, national average of 0.72. Now, he notes here, of course, 1.03 is still abysmal, but in South Korea, anything above 1 is high. Donggil Church has inspired other Korean churches to provide budget childcare for members at reduced cost by making use of church facilities, which usually stand idle during weekdays. As Korea continues to sleepwalk towards extinction, some Korean Christian leaders are stepping up and taking action. These two initiatives are only a drop in the bucket, but they offer hope that increasing fertility rates is not impossible, even in South Korea. So,
That's really encouraging. That's super encouraging. That's also the sign that, okay, I'm taking away a couple of things. One, letting go of tradition, and especially letting go of hard culture, is the death knell to you inheriting the future. Either you can lean into your hard culture and or adapt it for the present day, or you can create a new hard culture. But to just give up and or adopt some foreign religion or culture kind of is a cop out to just be like, well, I'm not my mainstream nation's religion. I'm this hipster version, but also like not really leaning into the ideology of it. It's just not going to work. But what's also helpful in this is that it's really not about any failure of Christian doctrines or values here. It's about, this wasn't really Christianity being adopted. It was traditionalism and hard culture being rejected, right?
I disagree to an extent here. I mean, if you know Korean Christians or Taiwanese Christians, they're some of like the most devout Christians I know.
Performatively, yes.
No, they believe in like young earth and stuff like that. Like they're really traditional. Well, these are the immigrants to the US who I've met. Now that I remember the statistics that show how non-traditional they are within their own countries, okay, I might be wrong here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep in mind the Koreans who immigrate to the US have higher birth rates after
Yeah, about
immigrating.
50% higher than the Koreans in
So
Korea.
like, yeah, I mean, how is that super
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they're just like the true believers are the ones that I'm interacting with. And in Korea, it might be more of an aesthetic choice, as you mentioned. Especially in a society that is this hierarchical, I can really see the choice of, as you've mentioned, it's like, are we getting a Western marriage or are we getting a Korean marriage? Are we getting a Western Japanese or a
Well, and you
Japanese
can see many of the aesthetics of Christianity, especially in like a highly structured hierarchical culture, could probably feel very rebellious and refreshing to an outsider who just wants to reject the traditionalism. Because keep in mind, Christianity is about breaking down the hierarchy. You know, this is not about like, you know, what something about camels and stuff.
Well, a lot of anime has actually bemoaned their anime like this after making it.
Huh?
So I think this was specifically the case with Evangelion, but I know it's the case with some like classic anime where if you look at older classic anime, they would put Christian tropes throughout the anime of like crucifixions, of savior narratives, of stuff like this.
But without overtly saying this is like Jesus, just kind of putting it in. Just
putting it in because they thought it was like edgy and cool. Like to them, keep in mind, this is a religion about a guy who died after like being tortured and like, you know, so they're like, oh, for them, Christianity felt edgy, profane, gothy, maybe a little like, you know, you go to Christian churches and they got all that. So they're seeing Christianity in this way, and they're adding it to their works in maybe the way that like, you know, Avatar: The Last Airbender might have added Buddhist elements to try to be like edgy and philosophical. And I've heard interviews in the past with the creators, and they're like, yeah, if we'd known how popular this would get in the US, we might not have done that. Because some of these shows get really popular with like Christian groups that see them as like Narnia or something, you know, like you know, that has explicit and intentional Christian narratives to push a Christian agenda, where they didn't mean to do that. They were just trying to be like edgy and gothy and like sort of like choose the foreign philosophy, which I find pretty interesting.
Right, like no reason behind it, just kind of liking the aesthetics. Like there was that issue of a lot of cosplayers in some Asian countries just wearing Nazi uniforms because they looked cool and they had no idea, like just no idea because I don't know, they've got not.
I don't think they care as much if it's Japan. I'm going to tell you that much. They don't have the same memory of that time period that we have.
It was, I mean, yeah, there were other things happening at that time.
But also think about like how cool, like, okay, I'm making an anime and I can, put characters in like preacher outfits and stuff like that. And this isn't a thing from my culture or my history. They have been they've done this in really big levels that like Western studios don't anymore, where like they're coded as like the good guys, because for them this is like weird and out there. And a good example of this recently is Fire Force. I don't know if you've seen anything. You should Google Fire Force. It has some of the coolest outfits I've ever seen, where it is a world
Okay.
that is a combination of firefighter outfits
What?
and
Is this the
Catholic.
one with the ghosts that you've watched?
No, it
There's
doesn't have
different.
ghosts. And
Oh,
Catholic preacher outfits.
wait, hold on. I'm looking
Go Fire Force anime.
at anime. What? What? Like nun firefighter. What is happening?
Yeah, like nun firefighter outfit and everything. Who also turned
What, do
into
they
like,
use like holy water when they're dousing the evil demonic fires from
no,
buildings?
no,
Why
no,
do
no.
they?
They create fires themselves and like fight other fire things. Anyway, it's awesome.
I'm so
It,
confused.
like honestly, the anime, the plot, not that strong, but the aesthetics are so beyond top tier that I'm like humbled by. Look up Fire Force Nun.
But how? He's so steadfast in his faith. He's always in prayer.
I'll take care of him. Please, keep back, sister. The prayer.
Right, of course. The flame is the soul's breath. The black smoke is the soul's release. Ashes thou wert and art, may thy soul return.
And yeah, it's like this like metallic reinforced preacher's collar. What is happening right
Yeah.
now? The cross sword. Okay.
Yeah, and
This
it
is
lights on
amazing.
fire too.
Oh,
like-
well, I mean, well, it had better light on fire. Of course, I love the barefoot, flaming-footed firefighter, because it's great to run into a burning building when you're barefoot.
but his feet make flames, sweetheart.
Okay, well, I'm so glad they do. Wow.
He can do like fly stuff. It's pretty awesome. Sorry.
Yeah, the nun outfit is the best.
But you see what I mean? Like you wouldn't get a positively coded faction in Western media being dressed like preachers. By the way, in the game world that we're building right now, so many of the positive factions are descended from religious extremists. Like one is Catholic religious extremists, one's Mormon religious extremists. We've got Amish, we've got, and we really go heavy into the aesthetics and the traditional stereotypes of these communities to build something awesome, because that was something that I loved from the anime I used to watch. As I always mention, one of my favorite characters in old anime is Wolfwood from Trigun, who's Catholic preacher themed, and I just like so cool looking. And you don't get this in Western media anymore. You used to in like the 80s, you'd get, Catholic vampire hunters, which I always thought looked so cool.
Yeah, totally.
But you don't. I haven't seen Dune, which could be cool. Maybe I should work on doing this. I have not seen somebody really make Orthodox Christianity look cool. And I don't know if it's because it's like too bedazzled, but like there's got to be a way to do
Come
that.
on, there's no
So-
such thing in anime as too bedazzled.
You
unless
know,
they're
you
like,
know how you make them look cool? Okay, you
Okay.
got to combine them with, and if you guys haven't seen this, you should watch it. It is so much better than the new Dune. The new Dune is like bad. Like I haven't even watched the second one. It's garbage.
Don't. It just, why did she become
Watch
a walking eye roll?
The Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries that was made for the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
It is god tier cinema because they made it like a theatrical play instead of like if you watch.
That's one where what's his face just like
Many people call it the
constantly
Ministry of
massages
Silly
his temple.
Hats.
Yes, it is.
Show. But anyway, if you watch the aesthetics of that Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries from the Sci-Fi Channel, and you combine this with Eastern Orthodox outfits.
Oh, so like Bene Gesserit meets Eastern Orthodox.
Yes. I think you could create because what you would do is you take the Eastern Orthodox outfits, but you'd have them do the sort of like hand actions that like the guild does when they're talking to people that are like over the top, or the Bene Gesserit, like they have all of these like actions they're supposed to do that like signal stuff.
Bene
And
Gesserit?
yeah,
Yeah, they're like secret. Yeah.
Yeah,
their
yeah.
version of Pig Latin.
They're secret like code talking to each other all the time while they're having a conversation. And you combine this with like the swingy incense things. I don't know, like Catholics do that too, but like the Eastern Orthodox, yeah. You can get some
Oh, yeah.
really cool
Well, I
stuff.
want to see an anime character who uses a swingy incense thing as a weapon, you know, like
Oh, this has
like
gotta be a thing.
there's gotta be a thing. It's gotta be a thing. And I'm sure that the number of times in history that one of those has been used as a weapon is not zero. So we can rest easy tonight.
Actually, I
knowing
like that. That'd be a great weapon for this faction. Like
Yeah.
to wrap it around your hand to have like a that. Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that as a weapon, or like
Be a great weapon.
combine them with like monks. You have like the Shaolin thing with like the
Yeah.
incense thing, and then you have on the side of it like spikes, so it's like a flaming mace.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You got the fire, you got the spikes, red hot flaming incense thing.
Yeah, you
Smoke
have
gets in people's
they attack
eyes.
a faction.
Yeah.
They're leaving the building because it's like burning down, and they got those like over the top outfits with like the swinging things.
Yeah.
That'd be cool looking for
And
post-apocalyptic.
then like in
world.
an emergency, you like explode it into a smoke bomb or something. But yeah, there's just so much you can do.
So
How did
much.
we get what did we get here?
We were talking about how in East Asia the Christian stuff was seen as like edgy
No,
and
an
weird.
aesthetic flourish, right? Yeah, sort of cool foreigner stuff.
And
Yeah.
I need to make their stuff cool. What else could I do that's cool? You got me thinking here for the game world. You know something I was thinking, like, what in the East hasn't been done well in Western media? Because everybody's tried the like Buddhist-y nonsense. I actually think that's super weak sauce to like include. Everyone's tried the Shinto stuff. You know what I haven't seen done? And a lot of old stuff did Muslim inspired. All Dune is Muslim inspired, first of all, right? Like that's like, okay, how can we make that edgy? Sikh. Go for an over the top like Sikh
Yeah.
warrior faction, like
Yeah.
the old Sikhs that are, they were so cool. If you read like old accounts of them, like one of the ones I remember really vividly is they were hired disproportionately to when the British were fighting Muslims. Because I don't want to say that like some parts of Sikh culture were really specialized to fight against Muslim culture, which was the dominant alternate culture against them and was quite a martial culture within those regions.
Yeah.
And so when the British would recruit people to go out and fight with them, they would recruit Sikhs for a lot of the senior positions and everything like that. And there was one account where they're walking through a battlefield and one of these guys jumps up. He'd been playing dead from the Muslim side, and the Sikh like sort of sidekick to like the main British general sliced his head in half.
Good lord.
Because he
Okay.
had, they've got those giant swords on them. And Sikhs even have like some unique weapon types. I can't remember, but I think the not just do they have the knife thing, but I think the circular blades might be unique to Sikhs. Okay, yeah, no chakrams. So they're not unique to Sikhs, but they're strongly associated with Sikhs. They are basically like a frisbee, like a modern frisbee, like a circular thing with a hole in the center, but the whole side around it is a blade. And you hold it in your hands like two circles, and they would fight with these up close, and throw them like a frisbee at someone. Like Oddjob might have one of these.
Gosh.
And they'd come on, this is like
Yeah,
I've seen
that's
this in
badass.
video games. This
That's
is
really
cool.
badass. Yeah.
It seems to me like the least practical weapon in the world because
Yeah, there's a reason why this isn't pervasive. Okay, let's just be clear about that. But that doesn't mean it's not cool.
I think that they like built them into their like big hair things, which is why they were known for them.
So the portability was favorable.
Well, yeah, you build it into your outfits, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, love you to death, Simone. This went way off the rails. What's in East Asia that's cool? What could I be picking up from them that's cool? We have a faction that is descended from Koreans, by the way, that I love. I love them. So this faction, what we did with them is one of the Korean corporations, when they started having fewer and fewer people, they decided, well, we'll just make our own people using, tanks that age people. So it's sort of like artificial wombs that create people at older ages because they don't want to deal with kids. They want to create workers. But what they ended up doing was creating people who are genetically specialized for roles within the company to create sort of a version of like the horror of like the worst version of a Korean life without certain proteins, so they can't easily leave the company. And the entire company is structured sort of like an ant colony, with like castes and everything like that. And you have like the management caste who is created for this. You have the worker caste. But my favorite thing about this world is one of the castes is the cast that does all public facing stuff, which is a teen female idol cast. This is all of the females, and they always have to be like signaling, and they dress like in super cute outfits all the time. And so they're constantly like, if you go to like a reception desk, that's who's going to be there. And like all the workers for like every meal, they get like shows of like Korean like pop diva type things, with the understanding that they're all euthanized when they hit the age of like 27.
Of course. Yeah.
Because they're, that's their purpose. And they're super okay with this. They're like, if you as a player, because I like discussing interesting philosophical concepts, if you discuss like, isn't this horrible? They're like, you want me to be old?
Yeah. Burn bright, die young. Yeah. I mean,
why would you do that to me?
Yeah.
And if you're like, well, what if you want to be like a mom? They're like, the company makes the people, and they'd make people better if they could, because they've been adapted to not question the company. It's like a child, like a horrifying like tribal thing. And I thought this was a really fun faction.
That's a very fun concept. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Love you to death, Simone.
I love you too. You okay with Dan noodles tonight?
Yeah, Dan works for me.
Would you like me to saute along with the ground pork, peppers, and garlic? I'm assuming that would be a plus.
Absolutely, yes. I would like you to saute that along with the noodles. You are my princess, and I love you, and you're perfect.
I love you too.
So thank you for being married, and I am totally whipped, guys. For those guys who think I'm too nice to Simone, some people come and say you're too nice to Simone. Some people say I'm too mean. I feel bad when people say I'm too mean. When they say I'm too nice, I'm like, I should be like, what? Look at all the stuff you did for me just today.
What did I do for you today? You got the chicken. Did you get the chickens? Did you give them water?
I did go to the chickens. I did give them water, and I got my hand pecked by one of them.
Bitch! Oh, who was it?
It was a black one in the more crowded, ghetto side of town. And it went for my finger when I was pouring the water, and I had to like close the gate. Because I wasn't able to lure them to the other side with scraps this time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have showed you where the big scraps bowl is.
Well, I couldn't have put them outside today anyway because it was all muddy.
Oh yeah, we don't want them. Yeah.
From the melting snow.
Shoot. Well, I bet that was Che. One of the black chickens is Che, and they're like very friendly. But I'm sorry about that. There's this one Midnight Moran that always goes for me, and that has pecked me a bunch of times because she thinks my fingers are little sausages, and she's like,
the Midnight Maroon are the black ones, right? They're the ones.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm talking about the green eggers. Yeah, sorry. The brown ones. There's a green egg.
Brown one. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Stalin.
love you to death.
Stalin bites me. Che got you, but
I need to remember to do a little clip here.
Hey, you want to make a bit of money? You see that? It's made of chicken. It's actually made of chicken. You kill it, you got free chicken. You can sell it to people. Or don't kill it, fucking eggs come out of their arses. Fucking hell.
I love them so much. They are wonderful. They're wonderful, beautiful birds, and they're so friendly and sweet. And I want to be
That's
a
why
better
we lock
bird
our
mother.
kids in with them to entertain our kids.
No,
Survive, motherfucker.
But I want to make a chicken tunnel for them. I've seen all over Instagram now, chicken tunnels, so they can run around your property protected from the eagles.
I'm okay with making a chicken tunnel. If you want that to be a major project, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think I'm very much in favor of this, so that they can explore the world. They yearn for freedom. But also, we have so many predatory birds.
Chicken tunnel, though, is just another avenue for a fox to break in.
I know. Well, then maybe we can. It's just that the like the hamster balls for chickens are really expensive. Like the good ones are $60 plus each. Yeah,
and you're not even going to get time to have them all run around.
I know each one has to take a turn, and like who has time to like switch them out? There's also we could theoretically construct a mobile coop that you can like wheel around. So it's just like a chicken wire.
Simone, I'm going to tell you something that you may not know.
They don't care.
They're chickens. They're made of chicken. Your heart is too big. Your heart is too big.
It's not too big. It is the size of a chicken. Small chicken. A small chicken. Juvenile chicken.
All right.
I love
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.
God. You know what really breaks my heart about the fact that like babies laugh when you tickle their neck is I like fear that it's this evolved trait of babies to like look extra cute whenever someone's trying to choke them to death.
Could be.
I don't like it. I don't like it, but it's also really cute. But they don't seem scared.
So you try to choke our baby. That's what a progressive reporter
No,
is gonna
I'm just
do.
trying to make her laugh.
Simone
but,
frequently
like,
tries to choke child.
no, I tickle her, but only like when I touch her on her neck does she think it's tickly. And see, look at how cute she's being. Because I don't know.
You're
it's
trying to kill her with your murder gloves. I see those assassin gloves you're wearing.
I'm trying to hide the obviously like completely ruined hands I have right now. So.